How on earth do Swindon Town Football Club find ourselves in this position? I've said that twice in the space of 10 months with very different connotations. So 2021 was a season to forget as our club was hit by COVID restrictions, the breakup of a league-winning squad and its management team, the plummet back down into the league's basement division. No fans, ugly football, and with a wholly unpopular manager at the helm. July 2021, and the club faced the prospect of non-league Melksham, Swindon Supermarine and Weymouth, with a mere handful of registered pros, a beleaguered team of backroom staff working without payment, and court cases with owners that are battling for stewardship of a club whilst its dirty washing is, unfortunately, once again, being paraded for all to see. So the club eventually limped through a woefully short pre-season and into 2021-22 under transfer embargo, along with other clubs such as Scunthorpe and Oldham Athletic. A raft of new faces on and off the pitch and renewed optimism, however, surged through the club. Stunning away form, balancing home frustration as Town kept pace with the other promotion hopefuls. On Monday, the 18th of April, however, many, including myself, believed the season had all but petered out as loan recalls, injuries, illness, suspension, untimely lapses and infuriating home form appeared to have finally caught up with the Town. A 2-1 home reverse, the former Town hero Richie Wellens' 10-man Leyton Orient painted an ominously gloomy picture for us all. Well, as the season reaches what is for many an unlikely climax, and both Oldham and Scunthorpe drop unceremoniously into non-league, Oldham, let's remember, were one of our Premier League opponents back in the glory days of the early 90s. Swindon Town now find themselves just 2 games from a Wembley playoff final, having produced an unquestionable footballing miracle. Pure football in a league of hoofball, technicians in an environment of up-and-atom set-piece giants. Well, as a wise man once said, football, bloody hell. Well, joining Tyler and I tonight to reflect on a quite bizarre season of topsy-turvy Wiltshire footballing fare, our BBC Wiltshire's voice of Swindon Town commentary, Andrew Hawes, who has been with us for every kick of the season, and of course, Swindon Town broadcasting legend and lifelong devotee Vic Morgan. But before we get to those guys, Tyler, good evening. How are you?
I'm good, mate. How are you?
Yes, I'm all right, mate. I don't mind telling you, starting to feel the early nerves. I'm starting to feel the early nerves.
Stop with these nerves, mate. Nerves are nothing.
Listen, as far as I was concerned going into Saturday, as you will know, I was actually feeling pretty damn calm. And it was only talking to fellow Town fans in the build-up to our preview show for Walsall that I started to feel a bit nervous. But I think it's just starting to see our badge now appearing on the Sky Sports graphics that's just really drummed it home that, like, I can't believe it. We're there. We've made the playoffs. It's bonkers. So, yeah. But you're in good spirits here, Ty.
Yeah, I'm buzzing with it, mate. Hopefully it's a good one, and hopefully there will be a armada of people in these Agbo shirts that I've just ordered.
A shameless plug.
Shameless plug. Well, it's not so much a plug. They're off orderability now. For now.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll be back if he signs a new deal. We'll see.
All right. Well, good on you, mate. Good on you. Well, look, let's bring our guests on, shall we? If we start by saying good evening to broadcasting legend himself, Vic Morgan. Vic, how are you? Silence from Vic. Now, I know that Vic...
Sorry.
Oh,
Hannah.
He's back.
Yeah, you went a bit like Doctor Who and the Dalek then for a minute, so I kind of missed the vital words.
Oh, I do apologise, Vic. Well, I'm queuing you in, buddy. I'm queuing you in. Now, I was just about to tell the listening public, I'm sure you won't mind, you've got a dual role tonight because you're also on babysitting duties, aren't you?
Yeah, we are, but the grandson is currently at jiu-jitsu. He'll be arriving home any moment now, so goodness only knows what will be happening. So, yes, apologies for any jiu-jitsu type noises that happen in the next hour or so, yes.
Plenty of judo chop is what we want to be hearing, Vic. Plenty of judo chop.
Excellent.
Well, look, brilliant to have you with us, Vic. Thank you for joining us. And we'll also bring on board a certain Mr. Andrew Hawes. Andrew, good evening. How are you?
I'm all right. I have no jiu-jitsu to offer you, I'm afraid.
Now, gentlemen, are you both sat there resplendent in bucket hats and sunglasses? Vic, that was a spectacular appearance from you on Monday.
Well, I haven't actually got it on tonight because there's no camera available. But I kind of, it was interesting because on Monday I was getting ready to do the supporters club thing at night, and I just thought, do you know what? I'm going to nip up to my local sports shop, see if they've got any, and thankfully they did have a bucket hat. So I just thought, well, why not? It takes me back to my hippie days when I used to wear a bucket hat all the time, quite frankly. So why not? Let's do that, shall we?
Well, it suited you, Vic, I've got to say, but I have tried many a bucket hat, and it just makes me look like even bigger moron than I actually am. So, but hey, listen, it's like we get away with it, right? You wear anything while you're sporting Swindon Town. As hopefully my son proved on Saturday, parading around the Bescott as an 8-foot dinosaur.
Hey, why wouldn't you do that? I mean, let's be honest. People do fancy dress on the last game of the season anyway, don't they? So, 8-foot dinosaur, why not? Let's do that, shall we?
Yeah, and that was very much the spirit. So, Vic, obviously, and Andrew and Tyler, and indeed to myself, we set ourselves some homework in readiness for this show, didn't we? Where what we're basically going to be doing, we're going to punctuate our reflections on the season and bring our sort of personal seasons to life. By instead of going through and doing a formulaic game by game, although there will be, of course, some reflection on our journey through the fixture list, we've all drawn up a list of the 5 things that we have loved, and indeed the 5 things that we have hated about this season. And there's quite a nice bit of variation across our respective lists. So I'm going to be looking forward to dissecting those as we progress forward. I couldn't think of 2 better people to come into the Sir Tom Broadbent Lounge to reflect on the season. And the reasons that both yourself and Andrew make perfect guests for us is that, obviously, as I said at the start, Andrew's been with us for every single kick of the game and has provided us with some truly, truly iconic commentary moments. And indeed, yourself, Vic, you've got this wonderful tenure as a Swindon Town fan, which gives you so many playoff campaigns to reflect on, so much sort of bonkers bedlam as this season has been, to sort of juxtapose what we've seen this season against. I could not think of 2 finer people to have with us. So you're very welcome. So I hope you're all settled in, beverage in hand, dear listeners, because between our 2 esteemed guests, the rather youthful presence of Tyler and the rather fat, bald, annoying presence of me, we're going to bring this Swindon Town season to a nice boil ahead of our double-legged affair in Port Vale. So I'm going to start by bringing you in here, Ty. And what I want you to do is cast your mind back to the pre-season period, if I may, as a lad that has unfortunately not had the ability, as I have, due to age, to sort of pull on the early 90s, late 80s successes of Swindon Town Football Club. And to our older listeners, of course, many of those, Vic included, will also have a certain event in 1969 to pull on. You've had sort of scant fare to enjoy in terms of your from your respective view in the county ground. Now, but tell me, Ty, what was going through your mind as we sort of entered that pre-season period with approximately 5 or 6 pros, depending on which way you cut it, on the books, and more online court case viewings than I care to mention?
Well, it's an odd one because obviously when you were going into it and before it had been announced that the club had changed hands, it was a bit like what is going to happen. I'm sort of terrified and hoping it's not the worst. But then as soon as you sort of get past all of that nonsense and Clem's taken over and you've got Ben Garner, Ben Chorley in charge of all the football side and you've got Gladwin coming back and that sort of thing, and then you're seeing the names linked with the club, such as Johnny Williams, which is very odd to read, and then you sign in your Williams and you read it. It was sort of an odd confidence as soon as the club had changed hands because everyone was underestimating us, and to be fair, I think even all of we were, because if you gave us playoffs back then, surely we were all biting your hands off for it.
Yeah, I think you're probably right, and I mean, Vic, I'll draw you in at this stage because it sort of went from famine to feast in many ways, didn't it? In a very, very, very quick space of time. But nonetheless, Even despite an encouraging sort of pre-season performance against Peterborough and some indifferent fixtures against our sort of lower, our non-league opposition, we still went into Scunthorpe not having a clue what to look forward to, didn't we?
It was interesting because, I went to Melksham on that Friday night and everybody that was there were just sort of looking around thinking, what's going on? Is this going to be a season or isn't it going to be a season? Will we have a football club or won't we have a football club? Then we all turned up at Supermarine and a certain Australian started walking around the ground and there was a rumour that the deal had been done. So, the mood lifted, and then one Anthony Grant was there playing at Supermarine, and of course that game against Peterborough he played in that friendly and got a standing ovation when he came off. So the mood really did go from sort of the Slough of Despond to sort of the very big heights. And I keep telling people this story. It was a Friday night. I was out with my walking football team having a pizza. It was like a sort of social get-together. And I looked on my phone and saw that we'd signed Johnny Williams, for goodness sake. And it was like a fall-off-the-chair moment. And suddenly you thought, well, actually, do you know what? This is going to be a half-decent season. I'm not going to say I was Johnny Leafield and predicted the playoffs, which he did right at the start of the season, so full credit to Johnny. But you suddenly thought, well, maybe it won't be the struggle that we all thought it was. And Scunthorpe was such a magnificent afternoon with 1H McCurdy getting a goal. And suddenly you thought, well, hang on a minute. This is a football club that might just be on the up rather than the down, which is the way we thought it might end.
Yeah, and Andrew, I'll bring you in at this stage as well, because obviously you had a very, obviously you had sort of co-commentators and access to players to a degree that COVID didn't allow us mere mortals in the stands to enjoy. But it was a pretty soul-sucking, lonely season for you, wasn't it, to come off of and come into, and off the back of a summer of, the most bizarre online court hearings where, we had everything from, fans uploading pornography and judges threatening to close things down and, severe warnings being threatened to people that were disrupting proceedings. Suddenly we found ourselves in a sun-baked afternoon in Scunthorpe, as Vic said, with the likes of club hero Anthony Grant back in the mix. As Tyler said, rumours of big signings coming in. Ben Gladwin returning to the club, which gave everybody a bit of a lift. What was going through your mind as the man that was going to pick up the mic, Andrew, at that point?
I think I thought even sort of fairly late on, just because the pre-season was so kind of constricted. Ben Gladwin was coming in. I was literally, I think, for that last week, kind of having to check who's, do research on the new signings every day. I think Ryan East was announced on the morning of the Scunthorpe game and things like that. So it slowly kind of built up to: are we going to have a team? Yes. Are we going to have a squad? Well, maybe. But I think my thoughts when it was starting was, we're still going to have to smile a fair bit and grit our teeth and have to suck up losing at Sutton and maybe sort of things like that. Take a beating at Barrow and just deal with it because it's where we are and get through the season. And it just gradually got better. But no, the season before was enough to suck the enthusiasm out of anyone, no matter how kind of insane, really. And you've still got a unproven manager coming in who. Do you remember? Had one very impressive spell at Bristol Rovers, which you got the feeling, doing a bit of reading, was more complicated than perhaps it might look at first glance. But there was still a lot of kind of imponderables, even I think when the curtain went up.
So Andrew, I'll stick with you for the time being on this, because clearly, as the season has sort of come to its natural conclusion and Scunthorpe have ended up being the whipping boys. I don't think anybody at the very start of the season foresaw that they would be as god-awful as they ended up being, which is a terrible thing to say for a club that's got such a rich Football League heritage. But on reflection, we couldn't have asked for a better start, could we, in terms of both the opposition and the nature of performance. And from my perspective, it was about, we got off. I literally thought it was a miracle. I could not believe the nature of the performance that we put in, the goals that we scored, and the way that we dominated. And like I said, history's not been kind this season to Scunthorpe, but it ended up being the perfect sort of jumping off point for us, didn't it?
It did. It did, as it happens. I think we sort of went up there at the start looking at them and saying they're under embargo. They'd finished the previous season pretty poorly, so this might be an okay game to get something. But yeah, the way Swindon kind of came through after going a goal down was excellent, and there was just a lot to recommend it because it was the first time fans were back, and I'd sort of it sounds ridiculous that realised quite how much I've missed them. You'd sort of acclimatised doing the commentary or just being in there to being empty grounds. Empty grounds had felt like normal almost without ever being normal, if you see what I mean. So you got that. There was a lot of like healthy emotion, and there's a really good turnout. And then to go and win just was a massive lift for everyone. And I've picked it as the whole Scunthorpe game. I think the third goal, when everyone knew it was safe, I think is sort of one of my definite moments of the season, because it's like we're here, we're alive. There's a team that might actually do a little bit better than we thought, and we've got to the start of the season. We've got some sort of squad. We've got some sort of chance of making a decent fist of it and having a good season. I must admit, part of me driving back thought, blimey, Scunthorpe weren't very good. I wonder if we're really going to need those 3 points to avoid the drop, but certainly did, and we remotely didn't.
Well, and then obviously we move on to Carlisle. Now the Carlisle fixture had a very sort of special place in my heart, and it'll be something that I remember for a very long time. Mainly, I probably would have felt a bit more like this for the Peterborough pre-season friendly, had it not taken me 7 hours to navigate the M4 and the associated road closures on my route round to which meant I ended up missing half the game, unfortunately. But there was a certain magic in the air against Carlisle. And Ty, I'll take your view on Carlisle, because I'm not ashamed to say that I stood there and got kind of a little bit overcome by emotion. That I think there are a few things that really hit me quite hard. Just as as we were preparing and the team was coming out, the town end started roaring. There was the feeling that we were back. That this feeling that after a really long period of all being trapped in our homes, that we were all back together. There was a kind of collective relief that life was starting to get back to normal, which it kind of was, I think, relating to Swindon Town on the basis that, of course, it's our lovely football club and we're all back there together. But for me, being at Swindon, as abnormal as following our football club can feel from time to time, is normality to me. It is my big major passion outside of my own family, and to finally be back there in the stand was quite an emotional experience. And then obviously, the boys come out. That the place kind of erupts. So I mean, it wasn't the hugest crowd for the start of the season, but equally, it wasn't shameful versus previous seasons. What was going through your mind at that stage, Ty?
Yeah, it's sort of the same as you. I wouldn't say I was as emotional as you sound like you were. But yeah, just the fact that we were all back after what had been a horrid spell for everyone, and seeing what looked like a pretty strong team taken to the field. Obviously, that was Louis Reed's debut, so you were thinking, all right, we've got a player on our hands here, and then we go a goal behind, which is a bit of a bastard. But it was just the way that everyone still sort of, it was a bit like later in the season with Forest Green, really, the way everyone just stuck with the team even when it was going to shit a bit. So I thought Carlisle was lovely, and if you could do it all over again, I think I'd do Carlisle all over again and not change a thing.
And Vic, what were your reflections? I mean, again, as the elder statesman of our group, and with the longest sort of tenure of supporting our football club, do you have any recollections of how it felt to you being back there for? I mean, Carlisle, irrespective of Carlisle, just being back at the county ground at that juncture.
Well, it's lovely. I mean, we'd had the Peterborough game, and we'd managed to battle through the traffic up from Devon as well. So it was pretty horrendous getting to these early games. It always is at the beginning and the end of the season. But you got there, and I remember we went to the cricket club, and a friend of ours scores for Marlborough Cricket Club, and they were playing at the cricket ground. So we went across and saw him and watched a bit of cricket beforehand. But there was this lovely sort of early season buzz about the place. And as Tyler said, we'd had a year of. And Andrew had this awful year of travelling around doing football matches with nobody in the ground. I'd done a couple of commentaries last season when, it was awful, quite frankly. But you got there on that Saturday, and it was a lovely atmosphere. The sun was shining. It was a perfect first home game of the season. The result wasn't great, but you just thought, hey, hang on. We'd had the afternoon at Scunthorpe, which I thoroughly enjoyed. There's that lovely pub not far from Scunthorpe's ground where loads of town fans are in it. Fabulous atmosphere. We'd all enjoyed that afternoon. Okay, Carlisle game was a bit of a letdown, but we were back, and you just thought, okay, if this is the way it's going to go, we've got a club, we're back watching football, the sun is shining. Do you know what? It's not the end of the world, is it? We get beat by Carlisle at home. It's happened before. You might remember Richie Wallen's first game was against Carlisle. We got stuffed 4-0, I think, that day. So, it was one of those, okay, we'll take the defeat and we'll move on and move on to the next game, and away we went.
Yeah, and Andrew, I mean, Tyler's mentioned a certain Louis Reed, who's ended up being arguably our most influential player this season, or certainly in the top 3 most influential players at Swindon this season. And just wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about him because I don't mind telling you, I tried to articulate this very badly to Louis on 2 occasions last week, where I sort of said to him that the emotions of signing set of circumstances, because Louis, for me, in many ways, it was a little bit like when we signed Anthony Grant. It sort of felt like an embarrassment of riches, in that you knew this guy had a reputation. You knew he was a decent footballer. You knew that you were signing somebody with super ability, but at the same time, you're like, how have we ended up getting hold of him? What were your what obviously you do your prep, Andrew. What were your recollections of sort of the Louis Reed signing, and did you have any inclination at that point in time where you were doing your prep that you would end up being as
No. Oh, sorry, no, I don't think I was as certain he'd be quite the player he was. I mean, obviously, you sort of looked at his kind of CV, and he'd been part of the sort of Peterborough squad that had gone up from League One. So even though he didn't play regularly, you're kind of thinking that's interesting. Someone's gone from top of League One to quote bottom of League Two. So that kind of stood out. But it was just thought there's a very useful, experienced player with a bit of ability who's decided to come here because Richie Wellen said. I think he said when he was down for the Man City Cup tie, working for really Manchester, he said he'd had Louis Reed on trial at Doncaster and he wanted to sign him. And the fact that he'd been on trial at Doncaster and then he turns down Doncaster in League One to come to Swindon, both of those get the sort of eyebrows and antennae going. You think that's interesting. We might be in a much better place than we thought.
Yeah, indeed. Now, Tyler, I mean, to go back over my point about Anthony Grant, you'll remember when we signed Anthony Grant. Clearly, no doubting his. I didn't have the feeling that he would go on to become the kind of colossus that he that he turned into the championship winning season, and indeed his ability to be able to sort of galvanise the squad. If you get my drift, and you and I have talked about this in relation to sort of Louis Reed as well. So obviously we were still a little unfamiliar as the system that we were going to play. I found myself just a little bit kind of baffled by it all. I didn't really know enough about him. But I mean, obviously, hindsight's a wonderful thing. You seem to be kind of pretty switched on to Louis Reed from the offset, if I recall.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as I saw that we'd signed him, I couldn't quite believe it. I know the general reaction from everyone was like, "How have we got him?" But for me, it was more, "How have we got him?" But this is the best signing we'll make all summer. Even like better than what everyone thought Johnny would be. I thought Louis is just next level. Like whenever you saw him play, he'd just get on the ball, dictate from deep against you. And then you watch him do it for us and you're like, right, give this guy a chance to control the game and he'll set the tempo to whatever he wants it to be. And as soon as he was signed and as soon as you could start seeing sort of the style that we were going to try and play of this, what's ended up being lovely to watch, especially toward the later stage of the season, this heavily possession-based sort of style of play, it's exactly what really suits, and it's the main reason I think like moving forward, if he leaves, it's probably a daft decision in my eyes, because you can't guarantee that everywhere you go is going to play the style that is near enough made for him.
Yeah, obviously we built, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm sure that it was the Carlisle game where Johnny Williams' signing was announced, and Johnny was being paraded around the in front of the Don Rogers, in front of the Arkles, in front of the town. Apologies, guys, just having a couple of technical issues. Just looking to bring the guys all back online now. Vic, Andrew, have you got me loud and clear?
Yes,
Yeah,
I've got
very
you as
bizarre.
well. Yes.
Sorry, guys, not quite sure what's happened there. I assure you my tech is all tickety-boo. So anyway, I'm not sure where we got up to, guys, before everything started going a bit squiffy, but I just started mentioning, we talked about Johnny Williams, and I'm sure it was Carlisle. Please, it's been a long season, so correct me if I'm wrong, but Johnny Williams being paraded in front of the town. And Vic, you told that brilliant story about falling off your chair and a blow your socks off signing, as it was once referred to in the Paolo Di Canio era. But the thing that really struck me that day about Johnny was the size of the smile on his face and how delighted he appeared to be playing for Swindon Town Football Club, or coming to Swindon Town Football Club. I mean, he was absolutely buzzing, wasn't he?
Yeah, it was that game when he was paraded around, and the crowd was singing his name, and there was that wonderful feel-good factor. And I mean, the point is, picture this: I'm in the middle of Exeter, sat by the quay having a pizza, and all the people that I play football with were going, and they all support sort of Tottenham and Liverpool and Man United and all this kind of stuff. And they're all going, "You signed Johnny Williams?" And I was going, "Yeah, we have." And, you know, it was that sort of feeling. And when he was paraded around the pitch, you're thinking, hang on a minute, this is a man I've seen play for Wales, goodness so many times, you know, and it was a great moment. And I think, to me, that kind of summed up the renaissance of the club, really, in a way. And I've got to say, one of the great moments of last week's dinner, which I was very fortunate enough to host, was at the end. Johnny Williams came up, shook my hand, said thank you, and I just thought, do you know what? He needn't have done that, but that kind of sums him up for me. What a tremendous bloke he is, and I know, you know, maybe sometimes he's fallen a little bit short of what we expect. But my goodness, when we spoke to Ali Willits on Monday about how he gets treated, she said that he comes off black and blue. He gets kicked to high heaven, and I think we don't know that, do we? We don't see that on a pitch because we're not there. We're not playing, but. You know, he puts that amount of effort in, and I can't hear a word against Johnny Williams. I think he's been cracking, and what a great signing he's been. And to me, that was the renaissance of the club. We've got somebody like Johnny Williams to sign for us, along with Louis Reed, along with Jack Payne staying, along with Dion Conroy staying. You know, all these people. Ben Gladwin's come back. Fabulous. That, to me, was the moment when I thought, yeah, this is back. We're back at football, and let's just enjoy it.
Now, Vic, for me, what Johnny Williams represented, and I want to sort of get your views on this, but it very much made me feel like the club had reconnected with its soul, and one of the reasons for that is Johnny Williams' signing very much reminded me of the glory days under Hoddle and Ardiles and Lou Macari, when we, and lesser so Lou, but certainly in relation to Ozzy and Glenn, when we started seeing players turning up at the county ground that genuinely kind of put stars in your eyes and got your imagination going. And I very quickly started drawing comparisons to a recent guest on the St Tom Broadbent Lounge with Mickey Hazard. And when we signed a player that had won the UEFA Cup for Tottenham, had played in the upper echelons, had unrivaled pedigree, and crucially was known to be in one of football's real good guys, that it really kind of seemed like that's the sort of signing that if you were a Swindon Town fan in the stands, that we kind of got spoilt with back then, but we also kind of took for granted, like that is the ilk of player that our club should be signing. What do you get my drift, Vic, when I say that?
Oh, goodness me. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, let's not forget this. I mean, under Ozzy, we signed a World Cup finalist in Nesta Lorenzo. You know, I just remember doing an interview with him once and saying, was Ozzy Ardiles a big influence in you coming to the county ground? It's arguably the most stupid question I've ever asked. But that was the sort of player we were getting, a World Cup player. Mickey Hazard coming under Tottenham, as you said, and under Glenn Hoddle. I mean, Tony Galvin was another one, wasn't he? People like that. We were getting great signings coming to the club. And, Johnny Williams was definitely of that ilk because, he's a Welsh international, proven Welsh international. Ben Garner, of course, he knew from his Crystal Palace days, which was a big factor in him coming. And I think he's enjoyed it. I mean, he does play with a smile on his face. And I think, people are starting turning up with beards, aren't they? And things like that. And it's lovely to have that sort of folk hero feel about a footballer, which, let's be honest, in the last 12 months, because we couldn't go to football and the miserable afternoons we spent in front of those computers, not miserable because we're listening to Andrew, of course, but, watching those pictures with a little white circle going around in the middle when it was all breaking up. And the joy of football was encapsulated in that moment when Johnny Williams was parading around the pitch.
Yeah, and so, Andrew, obviously, again, go back to you and your prep. I mean, surely your notes go out the window when you sign a player of the ilk of Johnny Williams. I mean, obviously, we got Ben Gladwin in the bag at that stage, which in itself, I thought, well, that's going to be our marquee signing. I couldn't, for in a million years, have expected us to have picked up Johnny Williams, given, obviously recent appearances on the international stage. And, all right, okay, not many minutes under his belt in terms of the glare of the football world on that major tournament. But nonetheless, it was still him. How did that affect your pre-match prep?
Yeah, no, I was very surprised. Not only because he comes with the reputation, he comes with those games at the high level, but the esteem with which he seems to be held at his former clubs like Palace. I think he's quite popular at Ipswich as well. Indicates a good guy and a good player, because you don't get that sort of cult status without being either of those. So yeah, that was a real sort of good surprise, and it was kind of yep, we're going up a level here. But I think we've done that to a bit of an extent. Perhaps now we can look back a little bit more than we realised. We found players to some extent. I know Jack Payne was already there, but people who've just kind of perhaps not lost their way a little bit, but lost a little bit of I think just the joy of playing, and we've given them that kind of opportunity. And people like Mandela Egbo, who's not played much, and that chance to play and sort of, kind of revive their almost sort of joie de vivre, almost their kind of enthusiasm for the game, because Johnny Williams hasn't played this many games in a season for goodness knows how long.
Yeah, indeed. And Ty, I mean, I'll get you to kind of pitch in on this part. We obviously were very lucky that the club invited us in to host to present our Sir Tom Broadbent Lounge Awards last week. So as a consequence of that, we ended up sort of spending a good portion of time with Johnny on Tuesday night, and then again in and around all the players on Wednesday night at the Supporters Club event. Ty, obviously, reflections on Johnny Williams as a personality. He certainly didn't disappoint, did he?
No, not at all. He's definitely been well media trained. Like I think it was Jay who pointed it out. Definitely very well media trained, but just when he's like come into the room, obviously the first thing he does is come to shake mine, yours, and Archer's hand rather than like saying hello to his mates who were obviously already in there. So you thought he's definitely sort of like the model professional, and clearly just a nice guy, because he was one of the ones who sort of stuck around for a little bit afterwards and just had a talk with us rather than jetting off like some did. But admittedly, that they had a movie to get to that they'd booked tickets for, so fair enough to them.
Yeah, an all-round good Egbo, as you might like to say. A genuinely nice guy, and we will reflect on some of the other conversations that we had with the guys, both on and off mic, later in the show. But nonetheless, yeah, as a consequence of being around the players, what has really struck me is that kind of the mentality, the band of brothers, sort of a certain steely determination. It's manna from heaven to consume that as a fan of Swindon Town. So, well, look, we've got the first couple of games sort of under our belt. We've had a chat about Scunny, we've had a chat about Carlisle, we've had a chat about some of the big signings. I think at this stage, I'm gonna pick one of you good gentlemen to reflect on their homework. And Vic, no better person to start with than you. So, just as a reminder, we said at the start of the show, a little bit of homework for all four of us. We jotted down our top 5 loves and hates of this season. So, Vic, take us through your top 5 loves of this season.
Well, if you've got them in front of you, I'd be very grateful, because I'm not in my usual place. I don't have those notes, but you have them, I hope. Do you in front of you?
Yes, indeed, I do. Just bear with me, Vic. So,
go on.
Yes. your top 5. Yeah, right. Okay. Where are we?
Well, the first one I think was being back at football. I think we've kind of covered that with the joy of being back at Scunthorpe and then the county ground, and then it goes hand in hand with having a football club. I think those were the top two. After the misery of last season and the what we didn't know about in the summer. And I remember doing all those panels in the summer with people, the wonderful people from the trust, explaining what the court cases were meaning, all that kind of thing, and what the judgment was likely to be. But the joy of having a football club and then being back in grounds again, those were the top two I think that I put forward.
Yes, you did indeed. You had the joy of being back at football, and some of which obviously we've talked about in detail, and the club surviving as well. I mean, okay, Vic, let's spend a little bit of time talking about the club surviving, because you'll obviously have memories, as I do, of that very sort of cold, miserable night in Brentford many years prior. In the early 2000s, when the rumor was the club was going to go to the wall within 24 hours. But I mean, this really was something very, very different to that, wasn't it? I mean, this involved court cases, this involved ownership, massive ownership issues. The fact that we had buyers lined up, but the legality around whether or not these guys could take over. We had an incumbent that was saying, look, literally, we have not got a penny. And crucially, unlike the Brentford game, we didn't even have a squad, did we? So, I mean, just talk me through it, Vic. I mean, how desperate, well, say desperate. Let's flip it. It's the opposite of that. How delighted were you to see us emerge out of that? And indeed, if you're going to talk desperation, how close did you think we were to going pop?
Ooh, very good question. I mean, speaking to people from the trust, they were always kind of confident that we wouldn't. And I kind of put great store in that. And I just thought, that moment at Supermarine when Clem Morfuni walked around the ground, I mean, I think he was as bemused as everybody else, really, because, the bloke's coming from Australia. There was a rumour that he hadn't come over to begin with, that he wasn't in the country. And then when you get to Supermarine and see that he's on the list of people who's coming to the game, you kind of think, well, he must be here then, and then he does. And all of a sudden, there's a bit of light at the end of that very long, dark tunnel of COVID and the possible collapse of the football club. I mean, I would say probably if you cast your mind back to the championship season, we had 4 or 5 home games left to come, didn't we? Where we'd re-signed Doyle. Yates was there. He'd re-sign or come back on loan. And we were looking forward to 4 or 5 home games of 5-figure plus crowds, I think. And financially, that must have put a big hole in the football club. And so there we were on the precipice or on the brink, as it was famously said. But I kind of always thought in the back of my mind, well, if the trust guys are quite confident, then I'm going to sort of stick by how they're feeling. And bless them, they used to come on after these court cases and explain things in great detail. Whereas, a sort of half a brain like me had no idea what was going on. But, I kind of always thought that this wouldn't go under. And if it went under and we had to start again in tier 9 or whatever it is, then so be it. You'd still go and watch them, whatever they played in. Look at Macclesfield. They're getting crowds of 4,000, aren't they, in their particular league this season. So I kind of always thought in the back of my mind that we would survive, and thankfully we did.
Yeah, and we doff our cap to the trust for their role in the summer, because, I mean, whilst I did feel that we were at the cliff's edge, sort of staring into an abyss, I think it was the flow of information and almost some, I don't want to call it fact checking, but the fact that they pulled the kind of key points out of each of those court hearings and were very quick to sort of, bring those to the table and explain some of the, explain away some of the peril, but also kind of give us a feel that there was a bit of a roadmap going forward. I mean, Tyler, you followed the progress of the court case. We were all on a WhatsApp group together at the time, and you followed the the progress of the court cases. I mean, what did it mean to you as a younger fan to be having a lot of the kind of legal jargon broken down for you? A lot of the kind of claims and counterclaims explained to you and fact checked by that entity that was the trust.
I mean, it was helpful that they were sort of there to guide someone like me who didn't really have a clue what most of it meant. It was nice to have that sort of help and guiding me through it all. But I think just the more you heard, it was sort of like Vic mentioned, like a confidence from the trust all the way through, that no matter what, we were going to come out of it fine. If not, maybe at a lower level, but on the whole, we'd have still been a club and we'd have still been rock and rolling no matter what.
Yeah, and I think the one thing that, I mean, I'll take reflections from both of you on this, but because the one thing that really sort of blew my socks off was watching the surge in membership to the official supporters club, to the trust. You had fans coming out. I think the final number, I mean, please correct me if I'm wrong, Vic, because you may well recall it, but we suddenly we had enough numbers that enabled the defence team to essentially, or empowered the defence team in that courtroom environment, didn't it? To actually say, well, hang on a second, like, this is the will of the fans is this, and the will of the fans is currently backed up by X number 1,000 supporters that all came together. I mean, it's all part of a big groundswell of support and re-engagement of Swindon Town fans behind, this something new that we all craved for.
I think the thing is, what people forget about football clubs is, I was dealing with a football club not far from where I am now once, who was on the brink of going in, well, was in administration. And I remember speaking to the administrator, a chap called Trevor Frid, who was really, really helpful to me in those days. And he said, what people forget is, if this wasn't a football club and it was just a business, we'd have taken it out the back and shot it a long time ago. And I think what people forget is, football clubs have these thing called fans, which there's an incredible emotional attachment to a football club, and woe betide anybody who tries to stop that emotional connection. And I think what was shown during last summer was that incredible emotional connection that we all have to this thing called Swindon Town. I mean, I don't know why. It's bonkers, isn't it? Why do I travel from Exeter to Carlisle on a Saturday, leaving at 5 o'clock in the morning to get there? What is that about? It's just this incredible emotional attachment to a football club. And I think what people forget sometimes is, it's very easy to run away with saying that football's a bit detached from its fans. But what we've seen this season, and I really hope it continues, is this connection between the football club and the supporters. It does need a bit more work, I have to say. But, the likes of Clem and Rob Angus and Danny Lee and all the incredible staff that work for nothing behind the scenes, they've done an amazing job. And one of my bugbears is abuse. And I know we're going to talk about this later, but, to think that staff are getting abuse over these tickets for Port Vale, what on earth are you doing? These people have worked tirelessly to get this football club back off the ground. And that's what we got, a football club.
Listen, I'll reflect on. There was a lovely moment on Tuesday night during our awards ceremony. Right at the start of our awards ceremony, I think it was, when all the guys had essentially come into the room, and I was explaining to them how sort of battle weary. So we were talking about we were talking about fans in the ground and the creating of atmosphere. And whilst we had, a 5-figure crowd, like, the atmosphere may have been a little bit sort of stunted. And the thing that really struck me, I mean, I've been lucky enough that I had a very long career working in and around footballers prior to what I'm up to now. And I always found, whenever you talk to footballers about football, there's always, or football fans in particular, there's always a kind of degree of disengagement, or I'm not really interested. Fans are a necessary evil. Now, obviously, I think COVID has woken a lot of footballers up to the importance of fans, where they were maybe taking us a little bit for granted. But one thing I noticed was every single one of the lads in that room, so that was Rob Hunt, Harry McCurdy, Johnny Williams, Jack Payne, Louis Reed and Josh Davison, all really lent in when I explained how, Swindon Town fans, we have really been through the ringer over the last sort of 30 odd years. And as a consequence, I do believe that, there are some scars that the club are still dealing with, but nonetheless, some of the clever, I mean, I think Harry McCurdy's sort of calling out the fans was absolutely inspired, and it sort of gave us the little jolt that we needed as well. But I mean, you included, the unity, Vic. You included that on your list of 5 likes. The unity between the club and the fans as being your top 3. I mean, the atmosphere, Barrow, Forest Green, Walsall is atmosphere that I haven't seen consistently in league games at Swindon Town for quite some time. I mean, would you agree?
Oh, totally. And let's put in the away games as well, like the Bradford City and, Carlisle and Hartlepool and places like that. There is an atmosphere back. We're taking fans. We're enjoying the football again. All right, sometimes we have a groan at home when we don't do so well. But, those atmosphere, Forest Green, I mean, it's incredible. And I know, we'll talk about moments of the season later on, but I still say, that moment when we scored that goal against Manchester City, if you bottled that moment and you sold it in the club shop, you'd make a fortune, wouldn't you? How could you beat that moment? It's extraordinary. And, to think back in July that we'd have a moment like that, I think everybody would have bitten your hand off. I mean, there is that now, that connection. The club, as I said, still needs to do a bit more on that. But I think they're going in the right direction. They've had so much to deal with. And Andrew, no doubt, will point to that. But they've had so much to deal with. There's a lot of work to be done. But as I said, those people working behind the scenes tirelessly to keep this football club going deserve enormous credit. And sometimes, Vicky in the shop and Matthew, who works behind the scenes in the ground, people like that, they really do deserve our thanks for what they did in the summer.
Yeah, and I mean that the rights and wrongs of entering the playing space at the final whistle on Saturday. You mentioned Man City, Vic, but I thought I couldn't help but sense there was a kind of cathartic release on Saturday as well. In that, I don't think anybody that kind of entered the playing field did so on the basis that, look how clever we are, look what we've achieved. There was a little bit of que sera, sera, but it wasn't about that. There was almost like a kind of celebration of, look, this incredible season has come to this kind of culmination with the most incredible thumping away, complete away victory. And there was this huge kind of swell and release of that. I mean, Andrew, bring you in at this stage. Obviously, up in the commentary box, you certainly enjoyed the Man City goal, didn't you?
Yeah. No, that, as Vic's put it, it's perfectly, really. That felt like the payback for all the kind of all the work that fans and people behind the scenes did in the summer to make sure that things stayed afloat. I mean, for example, I certainly don't know everything that they've had to deal with behind the scenes, but I think one small thing I gathered was they didn't even have mowers to mow the pitch at one point, or they'd stopped paying for those. That was how kind of cut back down to the bone a bit, that they couldn't even prepare the pitch properly.
Yeah,
for a new season. So to come from that, as we've discussed, to get to a moment like that where it was good. It's a great moment. They were never going to beat Man City, which was fine. Man City brought a incredibly strong team, which doesn't really happen in the FA Cup as well. But yeah, that was just like we've sweated, we've earned that. There's a bit of karma we're due, and McCurdy delivered absolutely.
Now, Vic, bring you back to your list. At number 4, you have said the achievements this season beyond our wildest dreams. Bring that alive for me, Vic.
Well, let's go back then to pre-season and Melksham on a Friday night. Beautiful evening, I have to say. Battling against the traffic to get there, but got there eventually. And I think there were 4 or 5 first teamers who didn't even have a kit. It was... I think it was a 0-0. I can't remember now, but it was an evening when we're all sort of bemused and thinking, well, what's going to happen? I mean, when I did the panels right back at the start of the season, we were all saying, if we finished above the dotted line, we'll be really grateful. Except Johnny Leafield, who said we'll be in the playoffs. And hey, hands up, mate, you've done it. And then here we are in the playoffs, which is an extraordinary achievement. And the one frustration, and I know this is another thing we'll talk about, if you win 2 more games at home, you'd have gone up. 2 or 3 more games at home in this miserable sort of run of home form. Think back to Eastern, Newport at home, Leyton Orient at home, which you've touched on before. 2 or 3 of those home matches, and we wouldn't have to worry about the playoffs. Now, how extraordinary would that be? And I get the pitch invasion on Saturday. I do understand that. But I'm also kind of the point where, and Harry McCurdy made the signal, didn't he? 3 more games. Well, technically there's 2 more and possibly another one. The job isn't done yet. And I think that's what the players feel. The job isn't done yet. So, okay, have a good time, enjoy being in the playoffs, but there's a lot more to do. The season effectively starts on Sunday, doesn't it? But if you'd have said that back in July, we'd be in the playoffs with a chance of going up, would you have believed that? Of course you wouldn't. Extraordinary season.
It is incredible, Vic, and I'll tell you what's interesting as well. You know, Harry going around berating everyone and raising the three fingers up and you know, really getting stuck in. And he wasn't the only one. You know, Mildy got very animated. There were various members of the first team that were a little bit sort of standoffish. It sort of struck me that, do you know what? None of the playing staff actually feel like, you know, that they have been sort of, you know, siege mentality, hard done by. You know, these guys are tuned in to winning the playoffs, aren't they? These guys are, you know, showing a certain sort of champion mentality. And I think the one thing the last few weeks have shown them is that we are all together now pushing in that particular direction. So, I mean, if you had told me that I would be feeling the way I feel about the current playing squad and about our chances over two legs against Vale, yeah, like you, Vic, I would have said you're having a laugh. I genuinely laughed out loud when Johnny Leafield said we are going to get to the playoffs. And as you say, you know, hats off to him. But
yeah,
I mean, I just couldn't see it. I mean, Ty, you're I mean, I'm a glass half full kind of character. Depending what mood I catch you in, you can be pragmatic or really super confident. If you kind of rewind to the start of the season, even with your kind of knowledge of the kind of technicians we're bringing in, did you honestly believe we had a hope in the, you know, of reaching the playoffs? Or again, were you very much of mid-table security?
I thought we'd be in with a shout at the playoffs, but I thought we'd just miss out because I didn't think we sort of had enough depth with us, and at times that sort of has been true. But yeah, I didn't think we'd definitely get playoffs. I just thought we'd be able to have a sort of scrap for it, and it might go down to the final day. Which, to be fair, it sort of did go down to the final day in the end. And I think if we'd have just missed out, I wouldn't have been surprised. But in the end, it was definitely a much more impressive season and than what I thought we'd have had. And most years, to be fair, the amount of points we'd got, we'd probably be in the automatics anyway. It's just a really strange season where somehow 75, 76 points it isn't enough for automatic promotion.
Yeah, I mean, truly bonkers season in terms of the performance of all the other sides. I mean, literally, it's been the form guide kind of goes out the window, doesn't it? And at one point, even with Forest Green romping away of it, I think we're all expecting their blip. But I mean, at the end of the day, they came very close to throwing the title away. But okay, so I mean, Andrew, from your perspective, you know, Vic's point about achievement beyond his wildest dreams. At what point of the season did you start from the commentary box to start getting a feeling that, hang on a second, like this is on? Because obviously the results at the start of the season, we started seeing that sort of iffy home form quite early. But yet we had really good away result against Salford that kind of lifted everybody's spirits. Was there anything that you were seeing from some of the early performances that gave you a flavour that, hang on, there's going to be more to this than mid-table security?
Yeah, I think there are a few of the sort of early games. If I look back, I think they are largely away games, which perhaps is no great surprise. And you touched on Salford then, and that probably was the first one because we were still sort of getting used to the kind of what Ghana wanted to do football wise and how they were going to play, but they also showed a nice dose of the dark arts early on to sort of finish that game off. They rode their luck a bit, at the start, but that was good. Beating Bristol Rovers so comfortably was kind of impressive, even though Bristol Rovers were on a terrible run, and then taking out Forest Green when there was the whole sort of farrago about who's on international duty. Are we going to have enough players? Do we want to postpone this or not? No, we'll go there. We're fine, and we'll beat the league leaders, and we'll do it. We'll do it quite comfortably. So I think though sort of spell of early results, you're suddenly definitely revising your kind of assessment of where the team can go at that point. There are still kind of things you think about are they going to slow down in the end because of the lack of pre-season? Are they going to get hit by injuries? But even sort of at that stage, I think I relaxed pretty quickly about, are we going to be in a relegation scrap or not? Let's put it like that.
Yeah, and Tyler kind of sort of touched on the if you look at the way that the season has finished now, we talk about hindsight, and Vic's kind of touched on it as well. But do you is there a it's going to sound a bit of a silly question, because really you would like it to have been at the start of the season, but if you take on my point that I made to the lads on Tuesday night about our fan base being bruised and battered, 30 years of hurt and all of that, was there a point where you kind of felt that, what was it at Forest Green at home, and Harry calling them out, where you felt there's been a reawakening amongst the Swindon Town fan base? And do you kind of get a feeling that it's here to stay, Andrew? Or do you feel it's just pure and simple sort of playoff anticipation and excitement? Do you think our fans have been given the jolt that, potentially will give the players a platform to irrespective of what happens this season, going into next year as well?
I would hope so, but I'm never quite sure. I think the way everyone did kind of what can I say? They did sort of kind of respond to what Harry McCurdy said, and it was kind of, for that Forest Green, it was like, right, we've all got a job to do here, and everyone got involved. I think I sort of tweeted afterwards that everyone who was in that ground could feel like they played some part in getting Swindon 3 points, just in all the noise they made to help the team over the line when they were down to 10 men. So you would hope, if you go away from a game like that, experiencing that, having that feeling, and when you really have sort of felt, I would imagine for everyone there, that you were part of that. You were not just a spectator, as it were. That if you can do that, and if you could lift the team, you want to feel that again, and you did to some extent, Barrow, and my goodness, you did at Walsall as well. So hopefully, it's a kind of it's a virtuous circle, but it depends. Start with 3 home defeats next season, whatever division we're in, and I'm not so sure it'll last. But you never know. But these last games certainly have felt different. You would hope people would think that feels good. We make a difference. I'd like some more of that.
So Vic, as a regular in the Arkles, which is I don't mean to be disparaging, it's known to be one of our quieter stands. And with your tenure of Swindon Town supporting under your belt, do you sense a kind of a reawakening, and that there is a stirring amongst the fan base?
We do our best. I mean, I'm of a certain age where I want to sit down, quite frankly, because I can't stand up for 2 hours anymore. So that's kind of it, really. But yeah, there is. I mean, I think, the one thing I'd say about Sunday is we have to be at it from the off, not just the players, but everybody. We kind of, and away from home, we know we'll get fantastic backing at Vale Park next Thursday. We know that, but we got to do it on Sunday. And 12 o'clock on a Sunday lunchtime is a funny old time, isn't it? It's a weird sort of, what are we doing here? It's football at 12 o'clock on a Sunday. What? We've only just got up and read the paper. What's happening? But you got to be right at it on Sunday. Everybody does. And I think the atmosphere against Forest Green and that last endless length of injury time was incredible. And, I think Ali, when she was talking to us on Monday, said about the blisters that the players come off with after 10 minutes and 8 minutes of injury time. We're willing them to keep going, not knowing what they're going through. And it's an extraordinary amount of effort that goes into it, especially when, we were down to 10 men against Forest Green for half an hour, which is extraordinary. We have to do our bit on Sunday. I don't think there's any question about that. And I think the way the atmosphere is at the minute, I think we will. One thing I'd say about Saturday is it was interesting to watch Harry McCurdy at the end, because, all right, he was telling people, go away, get off the pitch. But then there was like a 7-year-old came up and asked for a photograph. And do you know what? He took his photograph with him. And I thought that was a lovely moment for a young fan. Whereas he told the older fans to get off the pitch, but with a 7-year-old kiddie, he was willing to have his picture taken. I thought that said a lot, really.
Yeah,
you want to bring younger fans on, and that was a great moment, and that's how you do it.
Yeah, I totally concur. I think the other thing Ali Willetts was very, very eloquent in explaining is, or she almost painted a picture as to how that crowd noise elevates and drives on the players, like you said, getting them through the pain barrier, because I think that's got to be part of it. I mean, anyone that's run or marched any kind of great length where you've got that constant nagging agony on your heels, your toes, wherever it is, you need to kind of dig deep and kind of battle through that, particularly when you're talking about professional athletes that are pelting around at a rate of knots. But I mean, she went to great lengths to kind of illustrate just how well received that noise was and just what kind of a difference it had, an impact on the players. And going back to your man McCurdy, fair play to him for calling everybody out, because he basically laid down the gauntlet, didn't he? He said, look, yeah, appreciate it's kind of probably a bit 6-1 half dozen of the other, and we've kind of got to all come together and meet in the middle and create something magical, which we clearly have. I mean, Ty, I'll put it to you sort of slightly more simply. It's just more enjoyable when you're at the football making a racket, isn't it?
Much more enjoyable. The more you give me a chance to shout, the more I'm enjoying myself, if I'm honest. I mean, so some of the mates who stand in front of me at the football, Paul Ben Woods, that is mainly, they hate it when the opposition have a goal kick, because I just start screaming for no apparent reason. And I've ended up really hurting his ear on multiple occasions this year. So the more noise you make, the more fun you have, and if making noise helps the players out as well, then do it more. Just
yeah,
do
so
it more.
be it. Well, Vic, I'm going to just come back to the final item on your list, because we've mentioned him aplenty over the last 15 minutes or so. A certain Mr. McCurdy sits right in there in your list of things you've loved this season. Now, but again, bring that to life for me, Vic.
I remember going back to, let's go back to Weymouth, right? I know Andrew was there. Sunny afternoon in Weymouth. Had a lovely sort of breakfast in the cafe, which is next to the ground, to set us all up. Lovely. Got there, saw this player on the pitch, thinking, who's that? That's different. What is that? How is he? And I know he used a certain word to describe his game at the end of season dinner the other day, which I won't repeat now. But I think he was generally worried that the club might not sign him on. And then 3 days later, I think at Supermarine, he scored a goal. He rounded the keeper, slotted it into the back of the net. Beautiful finish. And you thought, yeah, this is okay. Then he scores at Scunthorpe on the opening day, and suddenly you have this folk hero. And do you know what you need in football? You need folk heroes. Harry McCurdy is a folk hero. He made me, on Monday night, a 66-year-old man, wear a pair of sunglasses and a bucket hat on a panel. I mean, who does that? It takes me back to when I used to walk up and down the stairs when Owen Doyle was here singing the Ginger Palais song. What is that about? Owen Doyle was a folk hero. Harry McCurdy is a folk hero. And for this season, we must treasure him. And, he has his faults. We all do. Everybody has their faults. But for this season, we have to treasure Harry McCurdy, because he is extraordinary. 21 goals, brilliant finish on Saturday after a fantastic run by Mandela Egbo. And you just think, for this season, we've had an absolute jewel in League Two. I've loved watching him play. He infuriates you. He makes you look in wonder. He's magical. He has that connection with the fans. Just for this season, I think he's been extraordinary. And, how many people want to go and watch Swindon because of Harry McCurdy? I would say there's quite a few, because he is a great, great player this season, which we should all enjoy.
Yeah, indeed, Vic. And both you and I, in the space of 24 hours, have been on the receiving end of Harry McCurdy's oral delivery, as we enjoyed sort of describing to each other that on Wednesday night. But I think the thing that strikes me about Harry McCurdy, I think pre-season, when you saw those performances, what struck me, I thought, here we have got someone that clearly on the pitch has got the potential to be an absolute maverick, score lots of goals. But then the minute he seemed to sort of start speaking, I thought to myself, hang on, this is going to be one of those pros that's so out of touch with whether that's reality, call it what you will, but he's going to cause us problems. That's going to be a lot of fines, a lot of sendings off, a lot of dissent, and so on and so forth. And as the season was unfolding, I kind of maintained that view. And then something really magical happened, and that was I met him outside the Arkles with Tyler. And Ty, you'll recall that day Well, I think that was the first time we both met him and actually had a conversation with him. And he came across as being a really, really nice kid. And then, interestingly, I then fast forward to last Tuesday night and our awards ceremony in the kit room. And it sort of struck me when Harry was doing what Harry does. Actually, everything he was saying was just so boldly honest and true. And I think whether or not you enjoy the language that came with it, or whether or not you agree with the way that he speaks as a professional footballer, it just struck me that this is a chap with no filter, but just calls it as it is. I mean, Tyler, what's again, you like me, you were very lucky to have that kind of contact with him. You'll recall probably meeting him outside the Arkles with us, and you've seen him on various points over the course of the season. What's been your take on Harry McCurdy?
When he first signed, I was very unimpressed because he seemed and sounded like a bit like you said, a bit too unprofessional for it to have even been worth it. But when you've seen what he can do on the opening day, and then the form he ended up kicking into, you couldn't help but think, yeah, all right, it was worth it. And like you say, sometimes he can be a bit out of touch with the language and just sort of the way he carries himself, and it definitely is at this point. Sort of just, I wouldn't even say it's him being honest. It's just whatever's on his mind, he says it, and he doesn't sort of acknowledge he's saying it. But yeah, he's an absolute character. Like Vic said, he is a cult hero down here, and I don't think he's like he wants to portray himself on Instagram sometimes. I think he's just quite a nice and funny lad. Whenever we've had the chance to meet him, he can be a little bit out of touch, but then he is just uncharacteristically him. He is who he is. You either like it or you don't. And I mean, he shithouses enough other people for us to enjoy it. So
yeah, and
I'm all for it.
Ty, my point about zero filter. I mean, I think that's kind of the point really. My fears. I haven't really got a lot of time for kind of for Charlie Big Bananas in a Swindon Town football shirt, and I think it's very, very easy to lazily sort of tap into that sort of train of thinking. I mean, Andrew, I bring you in at this stage because clearly, obviously, your preparation for games is exhaustive, and you would have had to have done a lot of prep around Harry McCurdy, which would no doubt have involved sort of talking to your counterparts up and down the country, your Carlisles, your Port Vales, the other clubs he's represented. What did your prep tap into any of this line of thought about zero filter versus Fancy Dan? Was there any sort of views that you were shaping when we'd signed him?
Well, it's funny because I didn't always pick out opposition players, but right at the start of the title-winning season when he came down with Carlisle, and he was that was when he was right at the start of Carlisle and had quite a good first half of the season. I kind of thought, kind of remember him running at us, being direct, being a threat, and thinking there's a player, an interesting sort of player to keep an eye on. So I was quite kind of encouraged when he turned up on trial, and when we signed him after that, having seen little bits of that. But I think the interesting thing is when we've gone to Carlisle, when we've gone to Port Vale, it's all the home. The first thing that people would talk about is McCurdy, and it's like, what have you done to him? How have you got him working consistently as a player? Has his attitude changed? All that kind of stuff, really. So he's kind of made a mark wherever he's gone. Not necessarily a good one, but it's like he's hardly played for Port Vale, and yet all before that game, the sort of Vale people took on, what's McCurdy like? I think they've kind of interviewed him and found him difficult, whereas. This was one of my kind of pleasant surprises. One of the pleasant things of the year. We didn't really speak to him very much because after games, because it was live, and I think we kind of feared the worst. But when he came on against Northampton, he was great. He was entertaining. He was open. He was thoughtful, and he was kind of interesting. You saw the sort of someone riding the banter bus. Do you know what I mean? You saw someone with a bit of kind of depth and a bit of thought and sort of understanding that this was perhaps his last chance. So he's kind of created waves wherever he's gone, but for some reason at Swindon he's got the sort of right vibe this time.
Yeah, and there was that wonderful soundbite, Andrew. Was it your interview at Bristol Rovers when there was a young kiddie basically saying to his dad, who was a Rovers fan, "I'm actually going to support Swindon Town," and you sort of had Harry chuckling along. Was that your interview, or was that something official with the club?
I think that was the club one, but he was around sort of afterwards then, and yeah, that was. I do remember that. That was just quite an entertaining exchange.
So, okay. Well, look, Vic, you've also got 5 dislikes, and the first of which you sort of touched on, the home form. So we just went into this period, didn't we, earlier in the season, and it seemed like a monkey we just couldn't get off our back, where our home form was excruciating. I mean, I remember going to Sutton away and just, I mean, certainly, for the sort of the opening 45 minutes, just thinking, wow, we're playing the most incredible stuff here. This isn't what I recall from Rochdale or Mansfield and so forth. But I don't want to steal your thunder, Vic. Talk us through your thoughts on the home form.
Yeah, just final thought on McCurdy, and the fact is, I forgot what I was going to say now. Anyway, let's go on to the home form. Yeah, okay, I'll come back to me in a minute. The home form, it's an age thing. Coming back to the home form, I mean the away form. Loads of us who've been lucky enough to travel. I've missed one away game this season, which is Northampton, but those of us who've been lucky enough to travel have seen some fantastic performances, and Sutton away was one of them, with Johnny Williams in spectacular form. And then you come home and you see some games where really they play like drains. And it's just been, you mentioned the atmosphere and the point about the noise. If there's nothing to get excited about, it's very difficult to get excited. And I think the county ground has suffered from that this season. And I get the fact that you should be behind the team all the time. But when you're sitting there and nothing really is happening, it's very difficult to get excited. And the home form has been this kind of enigma, hasn't it? Whereby you go away from home, spectacular performances like at Forest Green, at Bristol Rovers, at Bradford. Although at Bradford, of course, for 20 minutes, it looked like we might get stuffed 6-0 up there for a few moments. Carlisle away, great performance, wonderful performances away from home. And then do you know what? There are games this season I can't even remember at home. People say to me, "Oh, we've played them and we lost whatever it is." And I said, "Did we? I can't remember those games." That's how bad the home form's been sometimes. And the frustration about this, as I've said before, if we'd won 2 or 3 more home matches, we wouldn't have to worry about the playoffs, would we? And I think anybody who's been to watch Swindon at the County Ground this season must surely feel the same, because there are times when you're driving away from there thinking, why did we bother? It was just awful, and I didn't enjoy that at all. And yet there are other games like Forest Green at home, Barrow at home. When you drive away thinking, that's why I go to football. That's the whole point. Northampton, New Year's Day, when Harry got 4, albeit Northampton had just recovered from COVID, and we absolutely wiped the floor with them. So I don't know. The home form has been a major frustration. I don't think Ben Garner knows, does he? I just don't think he understands why the home form has been so indifferent. It's been just a bizarre season where normally you win your home matches and you get the odd win and a few points away from home, and that's okay. This season, it's been the other way around. We win away from home, but we can't win at home. It's very strange.
Yeah, very strange. I mean, Ty, I'll take your view at this stage. I mean, earlier in the season, I think it was after probably about our 5th kind of real nothing performance and sort of damp squib of a performance. The conversations you and I were having were all around almost like the guys were, the team was choking in front of a 5-figure crowd. I mean, we were. You reflect back to the Paolo Di Canio era, where we were winning trophies, and we got crowds this season that were bigger than that. And obviously we were having discussions around League 2 footballers. Is it just that they go out on the what is in relative terms we're a big club at that level. It's big facilities, big stands full of fans, and is it actually just a bit too much for them? To what extent, Ty, do you think this season has been that sort of choking, or to what extent do you think it sort of taps into what Ali Willits was saying on Monday, that actually they just needed more from the fans?
It's definitely not choking in front of a big audience for me, because we've gone up to Bradford and proved that we really can dig in when we have to. I think it was more sort of they need more from the fans to know that they've got their backing, they've got their encouragement from the get-go. Where if you start moaning on just one heavy touch early on when they're sort of getting adjusted to the game, it will affect their confidence and they won't play as well. But I think it was also sort of the play style, and I do think that Ghana sort of changed that later in the season, and it saw the home form improve. Obviously, with the Northampton game, we came out the blocks flying, and we absolutely smashed them. Walsall came out the blocks pretty well. Had a couple of iffy bits in that game nice and early on, but as soon as we scored, we looked comfortable. I think it was a lot with the play was a bit too slow and too a bit like rigid, that they had to do these patterns, and he sort of just, in the end, I feel as soon as we changed to that dynamic front three of Barry, Davison, and McCurdy, I think that was what sort of propelled us forward, because if you've got three lads who want to score goals at home, then they're going to do a bit more and create more, which the more you create, the more you're going to score. So I thought it was sort of down to Ghana to make the change. I think he made the right change, and we saw the form at home change, and I think we ended the season with more wins at home than losses, which sounded like an absolute far cry from what we would have had if we just kept going with how we were going before January.
Yeah, it's an interesting point, Tyler, and I'll bring Andrew in on that as well, because Andrew, I reflect. Helen Dolman is somebody on Twitter who I have the luxury of bumping into from time to time over at the cricket club, and Helen and I had 2 or 3 conversations around the sort of in the build up to the Scunthorpe game, where we were saying, look, something's got to change here. You know, tactically, something's got to change. You felt that growing frustration of lackluster performances at home, like it was getting a bit much, and there were some serious questions being asked about Ben Garner's style of management. And again, I use that term, a sort of lazy assumption being made that, hang on a second, is this just that we've got an under-23s coach and the job's too big for him? And there's a large group of us that convene over there before games, and that seemed to be a bit of a growing sentiment. Was that sentiment sort of permeating into the commentary box, Andrew, with you at that point?
Yeah, you could certainly sort of feel the kind of crowd frustration, and yeah, I do think at points this season you did wonder about it was just their like ability to somehow break down sides who would come and sit there, or perhaps deal with the more physical teams. Because yeah, I'm just having a look at some of the kind of form in that run. You know, draw with Bristol Rovers, where Bristol Rovers had the better of it. Scragging a point against Crawley, losing at home to Exeter, and then there was the kind of Tranmere defeat, which was a poor performance before that game with Scunthorpe. And yeah, I think certainly the kind of correspondence we got was getting a bit twitchy at that point about whether, you know, the team can play with the sort of energy and tempo that you see, and yeah, you do start to question what the coach is telling them. So there was just something about it where it did feel like it was, I don't know, it's a bit like one of those 1930s cars. You needed to wind on the handle for a long time for the team to actually get going. And I guess you've kind of lost the crowd a little bit at that point, that, you know, you sat through the first half hour and not a lot's happened, and you start to doubt a bit, is it going to happen? Are they going to find a way to break teams down?
Yeah, it's a shame that we haven't got the benefit of of being able to speak to one of the players in the dressing room at this point, because I sort of sensed, to Ty's point about our front three, that, you know, you had these players straining at the leash. And I think the fans knew it. We knew it. There needed to be a bit of a tactical shift. In Ghana's sort of saving grace was that tactical shift, Ty, wasn't it? He made the bold switch, and away they went. But Vic, moving down your list of dislikes. Now, obviously, we can't really do much about road closures. We've talked about that, the frustration around those. But you've talked about the fare, the food that's available at League Two, and particularly with a vegetarian slant. Obviously, you were well looked after at Forest Green when you could finally get into the ground, unlike with a lot of people watching the game from the hill. But talk us through your gripes with League Two fare, Vic.
Oh, I just remembered the McCurdy point I was going to make. He's a fan, isn't he? He's a fan of Chelsea. We all know that, and he loves going to watch Chelsea. He understands that. And I made the mistake of saying, "Oh, you scored against the best side in the world in the dinner the other night." He said the second best, the second best. He quickly put me right. So he's a fan. He gets it. He understands it. So that goes back to the connection that he has with the town fans. Yeah. It's I'm speaking as a sort of a vegetarian. I will proudly hold my hands up and say I'm a vegetarian. And yes, I do enjoy going to Forest Green Rovers when you can have an actual meal at a football ground. I get that the vast majority of people who go to football aren't. So I get that. But if you're a vegetarian and you turn up at the ground and basically what you can get is chips, that's it. There's nothing else. And I remember going to one ground, I can't remember which one it was now, and I said, "You've got anything vegetarian?" He said, "Yeah, we got chicken balti." You didn't quite get the concept, do you, really? So it's that kind of thing, really. And I know it's a small gripe, but it is one of those things that, like M5 road closures, that it's things that when you're driving back from a game at 2:00 in the morning, and then you have to divert around Bristol, drive into Wales, and then come back again. It's the sort of thing that drives you mad, really. And it's a long day when you go to Carlisle or you go to Hartlepool or you go somewhere like that and actually can't get anything decent to eat. So I beg anybody who might have any influence with any football club anywhere to think that maybe 10% of your followers are vegetarian. And just remember that.
Well, Andrew, I'll bring you in at this stage. So who's delivered the best food for you this year, Andrew? What's been your best culinary experience on the road?
That's a good question. The Bradford are pretty good. Bradford, you can get, I think pretty much you can tuck into the aforementioned Balti pie and chips there. So it kind of varies widely. So some places you get a cup of coffee, and so very very occasionally you will get a more substantial spread. But I don't want to sound like Ian Abrahams too much.
No, that's absolutely fine. I totally understand that. And I've got to say, hats off. I think the food that I've been consuming, I have consumed some calories at the county ground this year, let me tell you. But I think it's up there with the rest of the league. Ty, would you say, I mean, I personally think there's been significant improvements over the last year in the food that's available at the county ground. What's been your take? What's been your favourite fare, Ty, this year, or indeed the worst?
Worst for me, I think I'll have to give it to Crew, mainly because it just was burnt to a crisp. I didn't actually really get to taste any of it, so Crew's pie was a bit shite. Oldham, however, runaway winners. Their pies up there are unbelievable. If you go to Oldham, have a pie. The football might be awful, just have a pie. The pies are so good at Oldham. I kind of want to go back now just because of how good the pie was. It is remarkable. I think I bought like 5 of them, and obviously not all for me. I think I had 2, but they were just so good.
God, you young whippersnapper, the days of me devouring 2 pies at games and it not immediately appearing on my triple chin the following morning are long gone. Well, look, Vic, you close off your list of dislikes. Your number 5 was League 2. Tell us all about it.
I just desperate to get out of this league. We spent too much time in it. And, to me, it's like years ago, you used to watch the telly results come in and they were like Football League Division 4. And there were certain teams that were always in Football League Division 4. And now we seem to be one of them. And I'm desperate for us to get out of League 2 or Division 4, as many of us still call it. I don't want to be in the 4th division of football. And I know, that's just the way it is. You're where you are because you deserve to be there. I'm fed up with League 2. I really am fed up with it. I just can't tell you how disappointed I am that my football club's been in League 2 more years than out of it in the last few years. And we get out of it and then we always go, right, that's it. Let's get out of it and stay out of it. And then we seem somehow to find our way back. It's just bizarre, isn't it? And, because of, we had Di Canio, we got out. And then because of with lack of money, all of a sudden we went back and we got out under Richie Wellens. And then we've gone back because of that disastrous season last year. I just want to get out of League 2. I'm fed up with it. It's as simple as that, really.
Yeah, no, I don't blame you, Vic. I think you and I have spoken about the way your heart sinks as you you walk through the away end entrance at a Sutton United or a Crawley, and you just sort of look around you, and I mean, you can almost look over every stand in the ground. And away days at Bradford kind of remind me of former glories. So like you, I can't wait to get out. I really can't. But look, in the interest of time, Ty, let's switch over to you then with your likes and dislikes. Now, your first like is Louis Reed. Now, we spent a good amount of time talking about Louis Reed, so I'm going to urge you to be snappy on this one, if at all, before moving on to number 2. So take us through your list, Ty.
I need to get my list back up then.
I'm meant to be working with professionals here. Look, I've got your list
I've got it. I've got it, Mark. Don't you worry. Right, so yeah, Reedy has just been an absolute breath of fresh air for me. For someone who likes the sort of football that Ghana plays, I know it's not gone down a treat necessarily with a lot of our fans at times this year. I just think it's lovely, and Reedy is the sort of midfielder that I love. He can do the dirty work, but the balls he can play out wide, and it's all just heavenly. So yeah, there was no way he wasn't being my number 1. And every time we've met him, like off the field, he is just a good lad, and he'll always have a chat. And to be fair, he did use us once, just to get away from Football Phil, which was genius from him. To be fair, he really dropped. I can't remember who he dropped in it, but he really dropped someone else in it just to get away from that. So
yeah, he handed Football Phil duties over to Ricky Aguiar that night.
That was it. It was Ricky.
And Paul Ricky had never met Football Phil at that stage, and it's fair to say he didn't quite know what to make of him thereafter. But yeah, to echo your point, Tyler, and Andrew, please feel free to contribute at this stage. But look, the thing that really strikes me about Louis Reed, having met him on countless times throughout the season, is what a really thoroughly good lad he is, number 1. Number 2, how much he absolutely loves and feels very at home at Swindon Town, and not in a comfortable way, but to your point earlier about the style of play, the way that the club just suits him, the way that the team seems to be built around him. And a conversation I had, and I'm not betraying any confidences here when I say a conversation I had with Louis Reed's dad, is like, Louis is one of these lads that, he's talkative for sure, but crucially, he loves to let his football do the talking. We are perfectly set up to enable him to do that and bring all of his qualities to the fore. Andrew, how do you find Louis? You've had him on media duties throughout the season. What's been your take on him?
Yeah, very, very good. So very, very friendly, very approachable, very professional. You're in that happy situation where you don't think there's anything you feel you can ask him that you're going to kind of get a volley back. His football talks very well, and his feet are a prime example of the blisters that Vic and Ali were referring to. So he is putting himself through a lot, but just nice guy, tremendous player, and yeah, just a credit to the team.
Credit to the team indeed. Well, so Ty, continue us off down your list of loves for this season.
So number 2. And this one probably won't be expected, is Ellis Ayandolo's midfield run. It's same with Reedy. It's just been heavenly. Seeing him playing where he should have been playing all along, really, in my eyes, is what I've been wanting, and he's been brilliant there. His left foot at times has been pure gold this season. I think he's found himself finishing second on our assist charts this year, which I don't think many would have expected going into the season, and it's nice for him to have finally cemented his place in the team too, I feel. And I think heading into next season, is he a shout for someone who could potentially be captain? Yes. So I think Ellis, since he moved into that midfield role this year, was brilliant, and some of the stuff he's done is brilliant as well. Like that ball for, I want to say it was McCurdy against Scunthorpe, that everyone described as being Zidane-esque. It was good stuff, but thankfully he's not scored in a while, and hopefully it stays like that.
I think the thing that really fills me full of pride with Ellis and Ellis's development is that it's quite funny, isn't it? I mean, he made the point to us in relation to the 2 awards he picked up last Tuesday night from us that, well, boys, thanks ever so much, tongue in cheek. It's only taken me 7 years to become the most improved player at Swindon Town. But the thing that I'm really chuffed about is that you clearly were always aware that there was a player in Ellis, but that we do, and we're going to come on to this when I go through my list, we do have a tendency to search for whipping boys at Swindon Town, people that are easy to just have a bit of a poke at. And whilst if I was to mention names like Michael Pook, for example, I thought that the danger with Ellis was that he was going to become a Michael Pook, where a lad that gives his all, loves the club, bleeds Swindon Town, but becomes very, very easy to just sort of slot into that sort of whipping boy territory. But I mean, like you, Tyler, I think the thing about his switch from left back to left centre midfield was that the improvement was, and we were keen to stress this to him on Wednesday night. That was the context of those awards. The improvement was so steep in terms of not just looking like comfortable and affecting games, but here we've got a player that's actually suddenly gone from being the kind of whipping boy type character to being one of the first names on the team sheet. And crucially, you can see he's still young enough and he's still got so much more development in him. So, I mean, I'm not at all surprised, Ty, he makes your list. What else you got, Ty?
Number 3 is just away games with your mates. Since everyone went through that 18-month spell of lockdown where couldn't really do much, couldn't go out with your mates as much as you wanted, being able to go out with them on a Saturday, travelling up to Hartlepool, Carlisle, Rochdale, wherever, it's been a bit of a breath of fresh air, and it's nice to have it back and be able to do it all again. And so that's why this season I think I've done 53 games. Like it's just, that's what football's about more than anything really, and being able to do all that again, it's a relief.
Yeah, and so I'd echo that. I mean, listen, from my point of view, but following Swindon Town's always been a kind of tricky one in terms of building sort of local connections, because I've got a sort of 240-mile round trip. I have to leave to get there early, try and avoid the issues on the road. Because I'm driving, I'm not really drinking, so typically I'm not usually in and around the Legends Lounge, and historically I've never been to the cricket club, and I just never really been much of a social beast in and around Swindon Town. But lockdown flicked a switch in my head where I said to myself, right, when these doors open again, I'm going to be making a real effort to get to know some of these people. And that journey started with you. So, I mean, hats off to you, because that's then led to me meeting a whole host of people at Swindon Town that I now refer to as my friends. And interestingly, we touched on one of the things that COVID did do was brought in a whole host of new tech and got us all experimenting with ways to connect with people over the internet. The whole reason this show exists is because of that. As a consequence of that, one of my childhood heroes, I've said before, without meaning to sound gushy, Vic, your influence on my Swindon Town supporting is huge. I've become acquainted with Andrew as a consequence of some of this technology, and being able to meet him and have meaningful conversations and regard you guys all as my friends. So, yeah, Ty, I'm not at all surprised that's on your list, and I do think that is kind of, obviously that's being repeated in with many hundreds of people, which has been responsible for such large crowds this year. So hats off to you guys. I just wanted to say my own personal thank yous, because it's been a tremendous season in terms of building bridges with people on and offline, and crossing those streams, of course. What else you got on your list, Ty?
So number 4, I think we've sort of touched on it, was just sort of like the general vibe, the general feel around the club heading into it. Like everyone seemed to be on the same page, pushing in the same direction. We mentioned it with the Carlisle game. Everyone was just sort of happy to be there and be back at the football, and that was one of my favourite things about the season, was just how excited everyone was to go, no matter sort of how well we were doing at the time, or if we were on a bit of a poor run.
Indeed, totally seconded. And what else do we move on to?
And then number 5, we've also already touched on it, is food. Just the food at the football. Like the pies up at Oldham, brilliant. The Balti pie at Bradford, very good as well. Their burgers are awful. And Port Vale have a good pie as well.
Port Vale do indeed have a good pie, and hopefully we're all going to be enjoying them together on Thursday night, subject to ticket availability. Well, look, We'll flip the script a little, Andrew. We'll come to you, and we'll kind of do yours in reverse. Talk to me about your dislikes, Andrew, of this season.
All permission to be grumpy and moan. Marvellous.
Yeah, well, it's too much positivity from young Ty. Let's bring the tone back down.
Yeah. Well, let's see. I won't make too much of this because this didn't really carry on. But crowd behaviour at Stevenage and like the fact seats were getting thrown onto the pitch, and the sort of first two things I'm going to mention are in very different ways. They kind of lead back to the same word, which was sort of a kind of feeling of entitlement. So I felt that was pretty ugly, and obviously, we kind of did suffer as a consequence of that in terms of how many people we could take to some of the subsequent away games. That seems to have settled down as far as I know, but that was unpleasant, or that atmosphere felt unpleasant at Stevenage, even not sitting in the away end. I don't know what it was like for anyone who was in the away end, but that sort of stuck with me for a while afterwards. So I think that was the first one.
Yeah, I've never really, Andrew, understood, and maybe this is, I'll draw criticism from those quarters, and the criticism I draw, please do feel free to unfollow me and never listen to our show again. But I've never really understood the rage that must go through someone's mind where it seems like a good idea to rip an advertising hoarding or rip a seat up and throw it at the pitch. I mean, as someone that takes, my kids to games, and my kids aren't toddlers, but I like you, I went through a period where I was genuinely concerned that, one of my kids was going to end up with a big lump of plastic smashing them in the back of the head. And that's not an enjoyable thing to have to do, to be constantly looking behind you, sort of like seeing, hang on, are there any familiar faces here that I need to, ensure that I'm moving away from? Thankfully, these aren't people I know. These aren't people that I've seen. I've not been close enough to it, or I've been in any peril. But yeah, guys, come on, seriously, if anyone's listening to this that gets involved in that kind of stuff, give your head a wobble, because the financial implications on our club were significant. The feeling that you do put in fellow fans. I mean, I'm not a shrinking violet in the stands by all means, but yeah, I mean, I'm completely with you, Andrew, and you're on the money with that. Don't let me stop you, Andrew. What else have you got?
The second thing I got was something I kind of called the Barrow Brats, because there was just a point in around December where it would feel like every week Ben Garner would come out and complain about penalty decisions, almost kind of regardless whether they won or lost. And sometimes you get them, sometimes you don't. I think I understand from a professional level, it's incredibly frustrating, I would think, for managers and players sometimes if they feel a part-time referee has given their full-time job, given them something that they don't deserve and something they've worked for. But you saw the kind of this doesn't usually bother me when people mouth off the referee a bit, but you saw all the complaining after that game. Dion Conroy got sent off. They surrounded the referee after they conceded 2 penalties, and there was just a point where you felt, is this kind of sort of culture of we're not getting anything from the referees, we're going to complain about it? Are we going to actually, there was something kind of sulky about that game and about that performance. And to be fair, again, you've not really seen that afterwards. I think I did ask Ben Garner after that, is there something about kind of referees and so on that is kind of coming from the top here that you need to deal with? So that was just the point where that whole issue of like referees and kind of discipline and just a bit of petulance was just creeping in, but thankfully it didn't really settle.
Oh, but I mean, you're saving me a job, Andrew, when it comes to my list, because I don't know whether it's me or, because it's to see, there's always this feeling that decisions iron themselves out over the course of the season. But every single game, I found myself leaving either the county ground or an away ground, just shaking my head in complete disbelief at the standard of refereeing that I was seeing, and some of the things that were being missed. And I was really quite pleased when I got home and I was looking at the highlights and going, no, I don't actually think that I'm just, I'm being a sulky fan. Like some of this really is kind of, justified. Some of this feeling really is justified. So I think I could understand, that sentiment building up in Ben Garner. But I always, when it comes to football clubs and referees, I reflect on a comment that, Brian Clough used to say about referees. He used to go absolutely bananas at his team, whether you like referees or hate them. His approach was always, well, hang on a minute, they're only human beings. But you've almost got to butter these guys. Like he would chastise his players for criticising referees, and he would go to great lengths to kind of lay out the red carpet for referees because he knew how to play the game. And to your point, Andrew, I couldn't help but think, hang on, we're getting the game plan wrong here. So many decisions are going against us. I think it's because we're getting a reputation.
Yeah, no, I did wonder. Yeah, I did wonder at that point whether there was something, following around, and there would be a point where looking at Harry McCurdy was just bringing up a stream of bookings each week for dissent, which you can't indeed to referees. But again, out of something bad, I think that Barrow game, I think a switch did flick to some extent, and that's I guess Lewis Reed against Sutton apart, that hasn't really been so much of an issue, but it's incredibly easy for me to start giving referees a bit of stick in a commentary. It's a bit of a sort of last refuge of a scoundrel. But sometimes I just have turned around and looked to whoever's next to me, and we've kind of both the eyebrows have gone up, and it's like, yeah, we don't get this. We don't get this.
Andrew, whether there's an issue at your end. Okay.
Hey, come again.
Hello.
I can hear Andrew. All good. Andrew, feel free to continue for us.
Yeah. Oh, great! You're going to get me just with a stream of bitterness about what's been a really great season. So that was the next one on my list. I'll try and keep these sort of fairly brief. Is the kind of Tyrese Simpson tug of war, I suppose, because ultimately both, neither side has got what they wanted out of that. Tyrese Simpson spent half a year stuck back in the under-23s. Ipswich, rather than developing his game where he was playing well, Ipswich are probably going to lose a player who they could have developed and got money for. And I'm sure we'll never know the exact truth of it, but it's one of the kind of dislikable things about football, I guess, that players, agents, clubs will all, get stuck in kind of fairly ugly tugs of war over money when there are people behind it. So that was just as a kind of whole issue that was frustrating because no one has been served well by how that has all ended.
No, that's a proper sort of dodgy and weird one with how that one ended up going and rolling in the end with. Obviously, Tyrese, I don't think he's even played a minute since going back, and all it's done, like he says, is stunted his development. Vic, I don't know if you've got any sort of thoughts on this part, but feel free.
Well, absolutely, it stunted his development. He's missed half a season, hasn't he? And he got 11 goals whilst he was with us, and he was there on Saturday, wasn't he? And watching the team, I mean, I think if he had a chance to come back to Swindon Town, I think he definitely would. It seems to me he had a great first half of the season. His game came on leaps and bounds, and he suddenly was never going to be an out-and-out goal scorer. But what he is going to be is somebody who works his socks off and works really hard for the team, and that got better and better and better. And those 2 goals he got up at Oldham were fantastic goals. And we brought in Josh Davison, who's also another player who gives you 100% in every single game, but he's never going to get you as many goals as Tyrese Simpson gets. But whether he'll come back or not, we'll see next season. But I think he was a player who most Swindon fans would welcome back with open.
Well, it's a bit of a shame that the tech's a bit glitchy. Vic, I cannot help but think it's probably time of day. Normally we're after the watershed where the loading on the local internet probably isn't as brutal as maybe is being at the moment. But Andrew was talking so eloquently about his dislikes, and I think we got to the stage where we'd passed up petulance in the stands. I know that's been that was certainly a bugbear of yours when we spoke earlier in the season. Sorry, Andrew, you're back on, Andrew. Sorry about
that. No, it's all right.
I think it's a time of day thing and local internet loading. But what was pick up where you left off, Andrew?
Yeah, so I've got 2 more dislikes. We've kind of done a bit of sort of Barrow and the whole Tyrese Simpson thing. Dislike 4 is Colchester. I should say the people there are nice. BBC Radio Essex are nice. But we don't win there. Something strange happens, and it's the worst example of new ground development, bar Chester. In that, it's in the end, it's like just stuck in the middle of nowhere. There's nothing to do around it unless you really love BP service stations, and there's so much open space that whatever the Colchester fans try, it's very hard for them to generate atmosphere. So just Colchester away in general has some of the worst aspects of modern football to it.
It really is a kind of soulless place to be, and I think it's a warning to anybody that may consider relocating their football club to a all-purpose built stadia. And certainly, I think one of the things I love about our football club is it's right in the heart of our community, and I think Colchester is a good indication of when that kind of stuff goes horribly, horribly wrong. It's probably the politest way that I can put it. What about your likes, Andrew?
Likes, we've done quite a few. I mean, we've talked about Scunthorpe, we've talked a lot about Harry McCurdy, we talked about the atmosphere for the last few games. We've touched on Man City a bit, but I think definitely a like was we did kind of slay some bogeys this season. So like we won a derby with fans there at Bristol Rovers. Which was good, and we got to the third round of the FA Cup. And even as something of an arch FA Cup cynic, because people going on about it's the only game on telly in 1980s. Well, we didn't have mobile phones then either, and so on and so forth. But a lot of people at Walsall then, it meant something just to get into the third round at last after all the kind of indignities we've had, and then to obviously hit the best possible draw basically you could get was a massive bonus. But just to do something in the FA Cup was quite a pleasure.
Yeah, it's a fair point that as well, because okay, people, the FA Cup's taken a bit of a pounding over the last sort of decade or so, and its importance as a competition is questioned by many. But there is still a certain magic about it, isn't there? And yeah, the fact that we ended up as a consequence of the FA Cup enjoying an absolute fiesta event at the county ground with City coming to town, I think really captures everyone's imaginations. And I would be very, very surprised if you ask most town fans for their top 3 highlights of the season, if Manchester City coming to town and the McCurdy goal didn't play a big part in that. Yeah, well, and I mean, really, it's just a difficult thing, isn't it, Andrew? I mean, I don't want to I'm not here to sell the virtues of the FA Cup, but it really is one of those tournaments where you just desperately want to inject some huge level of importance back into it, like automatic qualification to the Champions League, or so on and so forth. But realistically, that's never going to happen. But I mean, the FA Cup as a whole, Andrew, this year, I think to a point re-established some of its soul. Would you agree?
Possibly. I think you just have to, on a sort of general note, accept that it's sort of got a bit of reduced circumstances, and it is what it is. You can kind of enjoy it. You can still enjoy it and accept that it's never quite going to have that central cultural place that it did, perhaps especially for you and I at a time where we were growing up, and that's just how life is, and things move on.
Yes, indeed it does. Well, I think okay, I mean, I'm not the good news for you, dear listeners, is most of my loves and my hates of this season, I think we have pretty much touched on. But two of the things that I wanted to just spend a little bit more time sort of exploring with you, good gentlemen, before we move on to almost like I don't want to call them our awards because we've already done them, but on notable achievers this year. Has been, I mean, 2 frustrations for me, really. We touched on it before. We talked about the kind of hair trigger nature of our fans, and I really, really do go back to what I said earlier. I do sense that something's changed in that respect, but that's probably been, one of the most frustrating parts of my season personally, because I'm very, very well aware. I'm not going to start standing here and saying, "Oh, we're lucky to have a club." The sentiment of that, however, does still stand, and I was very, very surprised at just how quickly memories faded in relation to where we were back in July. And I think in that respect, I'll leave it at that. I think, Vic, I wanted to get onto a topic I know is sort of, closer to your heart as well, which is, some of the, the targeting of some of our players this season has been pretty brutal, hasn't it? And people have gone from kind of favoured status to whipping boys. Sort of very, very quickly. Two players that in my mind sort of stick out that have come in for, quite a lot of kind of, merciless stick have been both Ben Gladwin and Dion Conroy, both of whom have been, terrific servants to Swindon Town over the years. We've talked about it on the show before, Vic, but really keen on drawing you in and getting your thoughts on that. I talked before about our supporters always seeming to like a whipping boy, and it was a shame to see that sort of come to the fore again this year.
I don't get it. I've never got it. And you think, what effect does that have on a footballer? When he makes a pass, when he makes a tackle, when he does something, is he thinking in the back of his mind, if I make a mistake here, the crowd are going to get to me? How does it affect him? I mean, you mentioned Dion Conroy, who's come back from serious injuries and is playing now. And I know we have discussed on this before about this, and I just don't get it. I mean, I don't see what you get out of it by abusing somebody, and certainly some of the online abuse is just shameful. Why would you go online and abuse somebody? I just don't get that. I don't think anybody in any job goes out particularly thinking, I'm going to have a really bad day here. I'm going to make several mistakes. I'm going to do this wrong. I'm not going to play very well. I'm not going to do this job very well. I don't get it. And, do you go around in the streets abusing people? Because if you do, you need to have a think about yourself. I don't understand it. And there's a mental health attitude to this as well. We talk about this and we pay lip service to it. But it seems okay these days to be able to go online and abuse people. Well, do you know what? If you want to abuse me for saying that, go ahead, because I'm old enough to put up with it. But I just don't get it. And we've seen it so often at football over the years where certain players are picked on. And I just don't know what the person who's abusing them gets out of it. What do they get out of it? Somebody can give me an answer. Great. Do they think they're better than them? Well, if you were better than them, you'd be playing on the county ground, mate. It's that simple. You're not. So just for once, take a step back and think about what you're doing to that footballer when you abuse them. I know we have a right to moan. Of course we do. We can all go along and have a moan on Saturday afternoon. But the personal abuse, just cut it out.
Yeah, and I think obviously we are now living in an era where we celebrate the fact that we are able to reach out to some of our heroes and build bridges with them. I mean, Ty, you've got some truly, truly wonderful stories, haven't you, about relationships you've developed with certain Town players as a consequence of ending up having contact with them. Most recently, Mandela Egbo. And some of the real positive aspects of being able to kind of build those bridges. But then obviously that's a double-edged sword as well. So, I mean, Vic, obviously, and indeed, Andrew, you will very, very, you will easily be able to recall the days where you would stood on the terrace and, the player kind of had the escape, didn't he, in terms of being able to just get in his car and drive away. These days, even if footballers aren't on social media, all of their teammates will be. And you know for sure that some of the stuff that's being said on social media by hook or by crook is going to find its way into their lap. And some of it is pretty heinous. I mean, am I being overly romantic here? Andrew, I'll take your view on this. Do you think we could ever realistically hope to get to a stage where our supporter base, given the experiences of the last few weeks, and some of the comments, like I said, I mean, I appreciate the whole supporter base won't necessarily have seen Ali Willis. Well, I hope they do, Vic, for your benefit and that of the supporters club. But Ali kind of made a point about the positivity from the supporters, the impact on the inside the dressing room on these players. I mean, there's always been that feeling. Let's save it up till the final whistle. Get behind your team until the whistle goes. Show your displeasure at the end, but get behind them for that 90 minutes. It's been said many times. Do you think it's realistic that we'd ever get to that point where we could get that kind of collective sort of support? I kind of know what the answer is going to be, but I'm interested in your thoughts.
I think I'm not sure. get very, very off topic there. Are we as a society at that place where we can do that, and everyone can kind of submerge their feelings for 90 minutes and push all in one direction, or kind of all sort of able to sit on Twitter and Facebook and just, if anyone uses Facebook still, or TikTok or whatever, and just we have that instant kind of button we can hit to release our frustrations, or almost. So are we ever going to be in a situation where we just all push in one direction for 90 minutes and leave that behind? But that may be much more of a societal thing than a football thing. I hope so. But like I said earlier, that Forest Green experience, I can't imagine anyone who went there wouldn't want some more of that. And it's your choice. You can make it happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I was lucky enough in a previous life to be able to travel out to certain clubs where that sort of spirit seems a little bit more touchable. Now, that may well be that I didn't speak the local language, but if you take, for example, Borussia Dortmund and the whole yellow wall feeling that they generate within their ground, to an extent Villarreal as well, the whole yellow submarine piece there, they seem to be able to engender more of a kind of collective responsibility within the 90 minutes. But I just feel that the comparison to the UK, it can just be so hair trigger. And like I say, unfortunately, my experiences pretty much since the Steve McMahon era of Swindon Town fans is that we can be very bipolar and very hair trigger very quickly. So I truly am a dreamer. I truly do believe over the last few weeks we've kind of sort of moved away from that. But hey, listen, let's we're park all of that, because now we're starting to sort of look towards a double-legged affair over with Port Vale. Tyler, bring you back online at this stage. I'm sure now we're going to start talking about wide pitches and excitement. How are you feeling looking ahead, Ty? Starting on Sunday, but obviously two-legged affair. We've got to think about Thursday night as well. You're feeling pretty pumped.
Yep, I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll be a very good game for us. I do think that the last game we played against Port Vale at the county ground, obviously, I think we lost 3-1 on the day. You could see what we were trying, but at the same time, it just wasn't working. I think the squad's stronger than it was when we played them back in, God, when was that now? November, October maybe? I think the squad's much stronger than it was then now, which will hopefully help us. And obviously the last time we played them, they got absolutely ripped apart. Helped that they were down to 10 in the end, but even in that first half, we still deservedly were ahead. And then obviously they've scored, but I think we should fancy our chances, and as long as the fans get behind them, we've been very good at home recently, so hopefully that continues with the form we've got going.
Yeah, I mean, of all of our playoff opponents, they were the team that I most fancied in the draw. And I mean, I'll take your view on this, Vic. I think Mansfield, on occasion this season, have looked very handy, and certainly I think appreciate we took Northampton apart at our place. But Northampton have obviously ended the season in the position that they have for a reason, because they got a really rich run. Would you have preferred any of the other two clubs, Vic, as opposed to Port Vale? Or you're quite happy with that as a draw?
Well, I'm pretty glad that Rovers are out of it. I think everybody is. I think that's the one thing we didn't really want, quite frankly. But no, whoever you played, listen, there's a great saying, isn't it? You can't affect what's been, but you can affect what's to come. And I think that's the way you got to go into it. This is a new season now, and whatever's been in the last 9 months, you got to draw a line under and look ahead to what's ahead in the next week and a half. I think, look, we're loving being in this position. We want to get through this semi-final, don't we? I can't mention what's to become after that, because you can only see what's in front of you. And these two games are massive. And, Sunday is going to be one of those occasions when you have to go along and enjoy it. If you don't enjoy Sunday, then I can't help you. You go along because we're in the semi-finals of the playoffs. We want to get out of this league. It's the route we can do to get out of this league. Get along there on Sunday if you've got a ticket, and just enjoy the occasion and give everything to help that team on the pitch. I'm one of these people who kind of quite looks forward to the end of the season because it's a long and arduous campaign. But this season, I'm really looking forward to the playoffs because we didn't think we'd be there. Get there, enjoy it, love this moment. Go to Vale Park next Thursday, scream your heads off. Let's get through the semi-final. Let's be positive about this. And I'm the most miserable person on the planet. Anybody who knows me will tell you that. But not at the moment. I'm thinking, come on, let's get through this semi-final and get through it. We need to get out of this league.
You're Victor Morgan, not Victor Meldrew, Vic. And I won't have anything else, any other comment made. Andrew, your prep for the Port Vale game. Hopefully it's coming along well. But I mean, certainly I'm looking at it from a point of view if they're having to play Chris Hussey as a left centre back, they've got problems. What's your take on it going into the game on Sunday?
Yeah, it almost sounds like we've been prepared to read from the same script, but I think we all seem to have come to the conclusion independently that out of the other three teams you could get, Port Vale look like the best option, having stuttered a little bit. Before that Monday game against Newport, they knew if they got 2 wins, they were going up, and then they put in, or they got opened up by Newport, who were arguably one of the more similar teams to Swindon in the way, they want to try and pass the ball and play. So you look at the way that Newport were able to kind of get at them, and that gives you encouragement. The away game that Tyler talked about, they were very good in the first half, even before the sending off there. And the away record in general gives you confidence that, so even if the home leg's a bit cautious and a bit of a dab squimp, and you go their level, I don't think you're that worried. You still think there's a decent chance of progressing, even if you go up to Vale Park and it's 0-0 or 1-1 or whatever. So you kind of look at it, and they're capable. They've got a bit of a physical edge that Swindon don't always have. But you're not. I don't think you're fearful. I'm unexpectedly calm because Vic talks about enjoying playoff games. As a spectator, I just live them as 90 minutes of pure adrenaline roller coaster terror, essentially. So, yeah. They're great, but it's like the Charlton games will live with me long. Will live with me long in the memory, but they're almost more than I can handle sometimes.
How do you survive it, Andrew? I mean, obviously you've got the mic in the hand. Do you think it's easier for you being the man on the mic as opposed to us having to just stand there and suffer it? But whilst I know you're not affecting what's happening on the pitch, the fact that somehow does that kind of help you keep your noodle in check?
I think it does. I think it makes sure I've got like something to do, something to focus on, rather than just suddenly build up a Port Vale striker as one of the most terrifying creatures on the planet when they're 30 yards from goal. So I think that it's kind of quite calming, or quite good to have something to focus on during the games as well. Even when they finish 5-5. I mean, if I hadn't been doing commentary on the 5-5, then